I know this is a very informal video, but we just had our big video go live yesterday, so I thought it was okay to just have a little chat, you guys and me. Comment down below with what you want us to do with this car, more or less. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome here to actually my house. Welcome to the brand new updated 2022 Kona Electric. We're gonna go for a drive, just you and me, go around town. I don't have too much time to spend with this vehicle because I'm actually going to the Holley High Voltage Experience, which you'll hear about in an ad later on in this video. But I timed that poorly because I only literally have a few hours to spend with the new updated Kona. So what do you say you and I jump in the car, go for a drive, talk about the changes, talk about our history with Kona. I've spent a lot of time with this car in previous model years and I've really enjoyed it. And actually it's one of the reasons we got our start in covering electric vehicles. I'll explain, of course. So let's hop in, get some cameras in there, go for a drive here around the beautiful northern Colorado hills. Before we head out and go for a drive, let me just walk you through some of the styling and specifications of the car. So first off, this is a 2022 Hyundai Kona Electric limited trim. The limited trim gives you pretty much everything. These cool wheels. The new updated styling is standard for 22. I think it looks awesome in person. In photos, I thought it looked a little odd. I actually really kind of didn't mind the other way, or I should say the way the other one looked, the earlier version, but this looks pretty good, I have to say. Comes with all of Hyundai's driver assistance, now with some updated technology, such as adapting to speed limits. The styling's interesting. I think it's 1.6 inches longer overall than the previous years. Forgive my shadow, it's extremely sunny out here early in the mornings. And overall, different taillight designs. This is all very interesting, all very odd looking, I have to say. It's kind of weird, but in a very pleasant way. And I love the electric version because you can't really tell the difference between the electric and the combustion. Really, the only difference is the grille. This doesn't have a air intake grill where the charge port is, for example. Does use CCS charging. I believe it's still the same, roughly 75 to 77 kilowatt peak charging. I do like the location of the charge port. Has 11 kilowatt onboard charger for AC charging. And we'll see if I can get this thing low enough. If I have enough time to drain it and full charge it before I have to leave, I'll do a charging curve video separately. Interesting on Kona, these are your headlights and these are your running lights. So that always kind of threw me off on the earlier one. But honestly, this car was one of the best EVs on the market, especially considering that it's built on a combustion chassis that's adapted to electric. Very few cars that are built in this style have good efficiency and good charging, and this one's one of them. And it actually is very good, and it's performed well in our EPA test. They say you get a little bit better rear legroom for this model year. I'm not sure I'm seeing it. One of Kona's downfalls has always been its size. It's always been a little bit too small for me. Therefore, I've always kind of recommended the Niro just because it's a little bit bigger. I mean, not much trunk capacity, but the seats do fold down. For a little small SUV, if you're a family of two, a couple, for example, living in an urban environment, I could see this working really well. In terms of comparing this size to Ioniq 5, Ioniq 5 is significantly larger with way more interior space. So that begs the question, this thing's 44 grand, near as makes no difference. Is it worth the money now that the Ioniq 5 is coming out? Well, let's talk about these things and more. We'll hop in, go for a cruise around some of the good driving roads around here. Guys, what are you doing the weekend of November 13th and 14th? Just around the corner, 2021, of course, I will be at Sonoma Raceway for the Holley EV event. Holley is a long-time supplier of awesome performance upgrades for vehicles, and now they're going crazy heavy into electric cars. Starting with this awesome event, you'll see content creators like myself, my friend Rich Rebuilds, Randy Popes, the race car driver, will be there as well. There's going to be a ton of people, and you'll even be able to get your EV out on track. You can choose from driving the road course, the amazing Sonoma Raceway, one of my favorite tracks. I've been lucky to spend a lot of time on that track. There will also be autocrossing opportunities, or if you don't want to go on track and see what else is there, they'll have vendors, a hangout area, and a great way to connect with other EV drivers. So November 13th and 14th, Sonoma Raceway in the Napa area of California. I'll be there. Some of the out-of-spec team will be there. My colleagues are coming. We're going to have an absolute blast. So if you're going to be at the Holley High Voltage Experience, make sure to stop by, say hello. We look forward to seeing you all there. Well, let's go for a drive. Just hopped in. I set a couple settings up. There's so many settings in this car, and that's one of the things I love so much about the Kona. You can have things like blue light filters if harsh light bothers you on the infotainment. You can have, what else? You can have the fan auto recirculate when you wash the windshield wipers, when you wash the windshield so you don't smell the washer fluid. It's so really very intuitive. You can also set up each drive mode profile to have different levels of regen. And you know, you and I have driven Kona before, so you know the automatic regen where if it sees a car in front, it will slow down. Then you have 1, 2, and 3. I have to say though, for the updates, it's been a little while since I've driven one, but I love the new updated infotainment cluster here. I'm pretty sure it's new. I don't remember it being this good and customizable. They have like a cube setting now, but I like the traditional gauges personally. I think this looks the best. Overall, it's such like a technologically advanced car that we're getting into here. It's like, why don't other cars have half this stuff? It's pretty amazing. And that's just the case generally for Hyundai group in general. You know, we've reviewed Genesis products on this channel. We reviewed them all. There's the pedestrian warning sound under 20 miles an hour. And the infotainment, all of this user interface stuff, so smart. Even down to, I can just shut off the rest of the car's climate control and have it just do the driver, which will help with efficiency. And I absolutely love that. So we're just cruising around, reacquainting myself with the Kona now. And what a nice place it is to be back in this car. I've taken a road trip halfway across the country in this car right when Electrify America was starting their rollout, and that was quite an exciting adventure. And I think we got stranded once because one of the chargers were offline, so you can go to Out of Spec Motoring and see that video. 4 different drive modes in this car: Eco, Normal, Sport, but then if you hold the drive mode selection, you can get Eco Plus, which shuts down all the climate control. We're currently at 33% state of charge, and I'm actually happy. I requested the car to come as low as possible because I want to do my DC fast charging test. So now we kind of have to heat up the whole system because it was down to 28 degrees last night. I don't see where it shows external temperature, but oh, it shows, yeah, 35 right now. And it's got the snowflake on. While we're talking about cold weather, Kona EV, is this guy gonna move? Should we beep at him? I hate beeping at people. There we go, woke him up. I don't know why I have an aversion to beeping. Maybe I should have just gone around him. Kona EV has a dedicated battery heater in mid to high trim. So I want to say SEL and up. I think that's mid and high spec. They both have you know, a dedicated battery heater, which is perfect for cold weather. So if you live in a cold climate, it's almost reason enough alone just to get the higher trim models that have winter mode, because then at that point you can warm up your battery on the way to a DC fast charger, get, you know, good reliable high charging speeds, things like that in the winter time. I don't know if that includes a heat pump or if that system is a heat pump. Someone will comment with the information. Anyway, we have a 150 kilowatt front motor. Let's try it out. Just spinning tires. That's always been the funny part about Kona EV, is all of that power going to those little Nexen super eco tires. It can't handle it, especially in the rain. If you try merging on the highway in this car in the rain, it's just as spin, 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 spin. And it has probably this car is the best case reason as to why you shouldn't make a front wheel drive electric car. Now, this is an adapted chassis from a combustion vehicle to an electric car. Therefore, well, they kind of were working with what they had to do. But at least they've shown that they realize this isn't the right way, because the next generation cars built on the eGMP platform, that's the 800 volt architecture of Ioniq 5, EV6, GV60, those cars are rear biased. So they know what's up. This is just purely an adapted car, but it's done really well. And I think it's probably the best case, or the best version of an adapted combustion vehicle to an electric vehicle and it just drives so nicely. All the settings are holistically put together. You have this great EV menu that gives you setting your daily charging maximum limits from 10 to 100% in 10% increments, both for DC and AC charging, which is so nice. There's so many little features in this car that, like, you just can tell the South Koreans get it. Like, that's pretty awesome. Anyway, let's go hit up some good roads, drive this thing quickly, try and heat up the battery pack a little bit, and then we'll get back to more talking about the Kona, because there's so much I want to share about this car. And now we're turning on to some good roads. So the one big thing we need to mention about this car, and a distinction to sort of Ioniq 5, is this car is only sold in certain states, and a lot of people have a lot of issue with this. It's, I don't want to buy a car out of state and then drive it back to my own. To me, it doesn't really matter. Just buy it anywhere and take a road trip home. That's my impression. But a lot of people will only buy it if they can be sold and serviced or whatever at their local hometown Hyundai store. And to be honest, the decision to sell this car only in CARB states was a disappointing one, but I just don't think they could get the units in. For example, for this updated version, they're in such short supply that even if I make this video on this car, is it going to make a difference to your buying decision? Because you probably can't even buy one. And so that's quite an interesting situation too. Batteries at 30% state of charge, warming up. We're getting more regen and more power output. I'm just yo-yoing it to spike some heat into the system. Beautiful morning here at Horsetooth Reservoir. Oh, absolutely love it. Now, I sort of wish we had this car for our big electric vehicle SUV comparison, because I think it would have actually done well, and it would have been the cheapest one there, but it wasn't all-wheel drive, and so I wasn't too, you know, upset that it didn't quite make it in there. Although, you know, maybe this car is just kind of on its way out. So let's talk about that, the relevance of Kona Electric now with Ioniq 5 coming. The Kona Electric is, from the ground up, a compromised way to build an electric car. And that's purely because it's built on an existing combustion chassis, like I mentioned, then adapted. It uses a 356 volt nominal pack, 360 volts, something like that. Pretty low voltage pack. And, you know, it's just not technically all that impressive. The package together is a really nice driving package. My uncle still drives a Kona. My dad, who you know is like Mr. ID4 now, he has owned 2 or 3 Kona Electrics before that. He like finds the one and then just like buys them and plays around with them, and then he moves on to the next model. Let's all convince him to get into some Lucid Airs next, because we need to play around with those cars. So Kona Electric is, you know, my family members drive this car. We've recommended them to friends, and they are great vehicles. Now, I have to also mention that my uncle's car has had like issues like crazy. That's just one example, but his onboard charger went out. Then he had issues with not being able to full charge his car because of a battery pack concern, similar to what happened with Bolt. And Hyundai was not extremely responsive in getting back to his concerns. And well, if anyone's watching from Hyundai and would like an update on that situation, I haven't heard, but I'll give you his contact info. He'd love to hear from someone. And to me, that just doesn't seem like amazing customer service. You know, someone who has bought the car, really wanted to drive electric, and is now having kind of a hard time with the restrictions put on it for early ones. Now, I don't know if this car is affected by any of the battery concerns or anything like that. I'm pretty sure they have updated manufacturing where we don't need to worry about you know, risk of fire or anything like that. But it's certainly something worth researching before you buy. And like I mentioned, this is just my first impressions getting in the car, and perhaps I'll do a more in-depth video on this vehicle once I get back from California, right before it goes back, where I can give you, you know, full researched in-depth piece, more or less. So Hyundai Kona Electric, kind of old school, still kind of pricey at 44 grand, but they lease really well and they hold their value really well. And I always thought the sweet spot for this car was actually the entry-level model, and I've actually compared the 2 different trim levels of this car on, before we had this channel, it was on Out of Spec Motoring, where I did a base versus fully loaded Kona comparison. You can go and watch that, electric of course, and I thought it was a pretty useful one. One thing I'm noticing is no heads-up display in this car. I thought the last generation Ultimate had a heads-up display. Maybe I'm losing my mind, maybe I'm not. So then we get to the next generation of Hyundai EVs, which I cannot tell you how excited I am for Ioniq 5, for EV6, for GV60, any of these eGMP platform cars. Now, I've been lucky enough to review the Kia EV6, and I missed it by a day to review the Ioniq 5 when I was in Europe. They're on sale, they're in the hands of customers, and then they just haven't really arrived here in the US yet. But trust me, I'm trying to track down some Ioniq 5s to get coverage on you. When we get that car, we're gonna go through our full gamut of testing. It's gonna be the range test, the charging test, the efficiency test, the sizing, the space, the big in-depth hour-long videos on that car to explain how everything works, because I think that might be just like the ultimate car. I'm thrilled with EV6 in my time testing that car, because charges at 240 kilowatts, like super deep into the pack, drives so nice, so quiet, good power, great handling dynamics. And so I haven't tested Ioniq 5 yet, but that's really just the ultimate EV on sale for the price when it launches, as long as it drives well and it can meet its stated, you know, sort of metrics. So that's why we're here to test and verify that what the manufacturer says is actually true. Based off of my initial testing with EV6, it's pretty true, and it's going to be epic. So that's going to be insane. So where does that leave the Kona Electric at this point? I don't want to hit these beautiful birds. Well, it leaves it in a very interesting place, because Hyundai Kia need an EV to sell today to satisfy environmental targets, etc. And it's still a great car. And even when Ioniq 5 comes out, there will be people who prefer this car for ride sharing or for any type of scenario that you could think of. But I don't really see the relevance of this car once Ioniq 5 comes onto the market. From a pricing standpoint, the entry-level Kona EV, I believe, will be cheaper than Ioniq 5. But then again, you're not getting as good of a product. Yeah, and it's sort of like this was the car 3 years ago when it launched. And now the technology has just leaped so far ahead. Does it make it a bad car? No. Does it make it a class-leading car? No. And it used to be. So that's kind of where my head's at with the Kona EV today. You guys let me know what you think. And yeah, let's go see how it drives. We got to warm this battery up. So let's hit up some twisties, and then we'll end the video there. If you really want me to do some extra in-depth testing with this car, I will make it happen. It might not be presenting the video. What am I trying to say? It might not be me presenting the videos, but let us know, because this video is going live the day I shoot it, because yeah, I've been just trying to decrease our time from filming to upload for you guys, so everything kind of appears and feels in more cohesive upload times. I know this is a very informal video, but we just had our big video go live yesterday, so I thought it was okay to just have a little chat, you guys and me. Comment down below with what you want us to do with this car, more or less. Worked really well with the ID4. We got plenty more videos coming with that car, mostly actually from your ideas in the comments. That was an amazing idea. So let's go shred this up some twisties, and then we'll call it a video. Let's start with a launch for performance driving, shall we? We're at 27%, battery's cold. We don't have full power available, so don't use this for 0 to 60 timing. We're gonna go drive mode sport, and we're just going to launch it. Ready? Go. And spinning tires just a hair, and then we're good. At full power on a dry day, you can still spin the tires when you have high state of charge, and we're moving pretty good. So in terms of how I have the car set up, I'm gonna keep the car in level 3 regen, which is the maximum 1 pedal-ish. But then as I come into a corner, one of the best parts about this car is I can pull the left paddle and get even more regen. And I just absolutely love all the regen in this car. It's awesome. I don't think we've spoken about battery pack and range yet, which this performance drive doesn't seem like the appropriate place to do so, but that's okay, it's our video. So in terms of battery pack, 64 kilowatt hour, I want to say usable, 62 usable, 64 installed. Anyway, low 60 kilowatt hour range. Great size battery pack, really is. This car has plenty of range. EPA rating, I want to say 260, right around there, between 240 and 260, depending on the year. I don't know if it was updated for this model year, but I don't really focus on EPA range, as you guys know, and that's because we do our own range testing. So if you head over to Inside EV's YouTube channel, you can see where we've done the range testing on the previous generation Kona Electric, and it did really well. I want to say over 230 miles on the highway at 70 miles an hour in a loop style test. And what a great car that was, that last one. This one, I think even just from visually, just seems a little bit better. I love the spec on this car too. White with the gray seats, really light and airy car. Feels so nice to look at, actually. And you know, I have to admit, the Kona EV's kind of been off my radar with all the excitement around the eGMP cars, but look, it's driving relatively well up this road. It's front wheel drivey and, you know, not a super amazingly calibrated, but it's so small and lightweight at under 4,000 pounds. The max one, this one's about 3,800 and some change. And I have to say, while that never occurred to me of being like a crazy light car, after spending so much time with all these EVs, that's actually like really light, and it's pretty nimble to chuck around too. And look at this thing just eating up this road. While it may not have, you know, a grip advantage with these, you know, all-season tires, it may not have a power advantage with only 150 kilowatt output, about 200 horsepower. I think it's technically 201 horsepower. It feels so much faster than a rear-wheel drive ID4 with the exact same amount of power, just because I think it weighs almost like 800 to 1,000 pounds less. So, you know, it's not always about full power output, it's always about the power to weight ratio. And this is more than fun to like toss up a back road. Wow, that was great. So yeah, it's a great car. It really truly is. And I actually hope you guys want to see some more things. We're just gonna flip around right here. No one's coming, all good. Good turning radius and full power, ripping tires. Wow, this thing's great. And then regen paddle in. So the brake pedal in earlier Konas always had a little bit of an odd braking stutter. If you were driving the car in the rain, because this car can do north of 150 kilowatt regen, tons of regen in this car, and that is a benefit to having a front wheel drive powertrain EV, is you can just charge on the downhill. One of the benefits, or I should say one of the downfalls of this car, was that braking system would essentially get confused in the transition between regen to friction. And it was just, you know, early, I would say, bad programming of a brake-by-wire system that basically, if the regen locked a wheel by hitting a bump or by getting on a painted line on a wet road, you would get this moment of no braking force. You could stand on the brake pedal as hard as you could, and there was a period of time, very short, where the car would just coast, and then it would transition to friction brakes. I have not experienced that in this car yet. I've sort of tried hitting brakes over bumps to get it to do it. I'll let you know if that pops up again. Another issue on early Konas was if I held the left paddle, it will bring you all the way to a stop and hold you on motor torque. It doesn't blend in friction brakes at 0. But what would happen was it wouldn't keep the brake lights on when you had come to a stop. So it would just sit there with no brake lights. And I always thought that was an issue. But then for the 2021 or 2020 model year, I can't quite remember, but the last one we tested back when I was living in North Carolina, so it must have been over a year ago, that car actually did keep the brake lights on when you held the left paddle. So they've been making updates based on some user suggestions and feedback or internal testing, whatever, and the cars are getting better. And this one seems like the best one yet. I love the design, love everything, love sitting in here. The seat doesn't go low enough for me, but yeah, I mean, look, it's just one of those memory cars that I'm like, man, we really need to pay more attention to this car. And so maybe we should, maybe we will. It's a very, let me know what you guys are paying for these out in the real world for the updated ones. I think they're going for sticker, if not above, just because they're so hard to get in the US with the approach of Ioniq 5. I'll leave you with one last thought. That is the efficiency. Even after just ripping it up and down this road, for the last 138 miles, I haven't been driving the car, but they, you know, brought it up to the house from where the media cars are kept. It's done 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. We're down to 4.2 right now, but when I got in it this morning, it was 4.5. That's insane. That's 200 and 210 watt hour per mile, something like that, 225 watt hour per mile. That's crazy efficient, holy smokes. And like, that just sort of negates the argument, if you will, of doing a, you know, combustion chassis adapted for electric has to be inefficient. You know, Polestar, very inefficient car. And this, totally the opposite. So impressed, sun is bright. There you have it. If you want to see more stuff, maybe we can convince Timon, maybe we can convince some of the crew here to do a range test with it and things like that while I'm gone. Let us know what you want to see. Sorry for the very informal video, but I thought it'd be fun to just go and remember the Kona EV with you guys, because yeah, I used to cover this car a ton, and it got our start. And let me finish on this too. I'm rambling this morning. Whoa, I need some Starbucks. We started out of spec motoring road tripping with the Kona Electric. We had Teslas, but our first full EV road trip, my first road trip, I believe was big one, was New York to Naples, Florida in the Kona EV using Electrify America. And that's how we got our start almost 3 years ago, using one of these cars. So to me, it's a pretty sentimental car. It's, you know, sort of got our channels into the world of electric. It, you know, not that we cover EVs exclusively, but I still think, you know, we hopefully do a pretty good job of explaining the cars more than your average reviewer or review agency. And yeah, this is such a good trip down memory lane in this car. My friend Martin at EV News Daily just lived with one for a few months, and he said it was amazing. Perhaps we should maybe spend some more time with this car later on and just you know, see if it's really needed. You know, this whole talk of 800 volt and fast charging only matters if you need fast charging. If you're just cruising around town, well, the new technology isn't really going to make much of a difference into your life if you charge at home every day. Interesting questions. This is a video, like I said, open to you guys. Let me know what you think. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.